It was Bloody Saturday this weekend in college football as we saw 5 of the top 11 go down. I think 4 of those went down to unranked opponents. And we almost saw a 6th top 11 team go down. It was absolutely nuts. It's football, bro. You can catch this in its podcast form on all podcasts and platforms, or you can check it out live on the YouTube. Let's go ahead, get into this sucker. We're doing things a little bit different today. We're going to go straight into my college football top 25. And of course, we got to start with the fallers because there's quite a bit, as I have 5 teams falling out of the top 25. UNLV, let's start there. They had a heartbreaking finish, unfortunately, against Syracuse, where they would lose 44-41 in OT. It was a good game, back and forth, and it was just a hell lot of fun, man. Kyle McCord was able to get things done, and UNLV, by no means does this mean now they're out of the college football playoff race, but things now do get a little bit harder. The path through the Mountain West will go through Boise. I mean, both these teams, UNLV, Boise, they're undefeated in conference play. I imagine they're not just going to face each other during the season, but we're also going to see them take on one another for the Mountain West crown. However, I do believe if we're going to see a team in the Mountain West make the college football playoff, that team's going to have to win both this UNLV Boise game, and then that the team that wins that's also going to have to win the Mountain West if they're going to make it. So UNLV, unfortunate faller. I'm a big mark for UNLV, so hopefully better things lie ahead. But I'm also a big mark for Ashton Genty, who we'll be talking about later when it comes to the Heisman race. But we also saw Louisville. They dropped to 3-2 as they get taken down by SMU, man. SMU, they're hot. They're the hot commodity in the ACC right now, them and Clemson. And SMU was able to get it done. They end up winning, 34-27. And Louisville, man, the defense just weren't able to get consistent pressure. And the SMU offense just ripped them apart. Tyler Shuck played a good game, but could only do so much as SMU. Man, they're on the up and up. Their schedule, not bad. It's not bad. Their one loss coming against BYU, who's also currently undefeated, suddenly not looking so bad. Louisville, they'll take on Virginia next week, so good luck, Godspeed. Virginia coming off a big win against Boston College. USC, oh man, they end up just dropping this one against Minnesota. They lose 24-17. They take on Penn State next week. I don't imagine things getting better. That's a big reason why they end up dropping out of my top 25. This was the last team that they were on that cusp to stay in the top 25. But I was like, man, with Penn State next weekend, I don't know, man. I think Penn State potentially could roll through them. Like they're squishy. USC squishy in the trenches. Penn State's going to take advantage of that. And honestly, like the receivers aren't getting separation. The pass protection is so-so at best right now for USC. And Miller Moss, he just kind of floundered in some of the clutch moments in this game, as he would just put the ball in harm's way, unfortunately. And USC, I can't see them with teams such as Penn State. I think they got Ohio State and Oregon still left on the schedule. I can't see them being anything more than an 8 or 7 win team this year. The schedule is just pretty tough from here on out. They also got Notre Dame. I know that for sure. And then Arizona, they end up dropping this game at home to Texas Tech, 28-22. Man, don't look now. Red Raiders, I believe they're like 4-1, 5-1. Don't look now, man. Texas Tech, man, they're they're for real, man. They're for real. So Arizona, after so wild, you get smashed by Kansas State, and then you come back You get a big win in Utah over a non-Cam Rising-led Utah Utes, and then you drop this against Texas Tech. Not a great look, unfortunately. Not a great look. And the Big 12, straight up, it is the the Big 12 is wide open. It is wide open, as you could tell from my teams that are just missed my top 25. But the Big 12 feels like it's anyone's game at this point. It's kind of nuts. It's kind of wild. And then finally, Rutgers. Rutgers, they just entered my top 25 last week. Unfortunately, couldn't get the win there. If you bet the under, you're a very happy boy. I think the under was set at 38.5. That was the one I liked. That I think I wanted to bet it up to 40.5. I ended up going with Rutgers plus 6.5 in some bets. I took a money line in some bets. Part of me, little voice in the back of my head was like, bet it up to plus 7.5. What are you doing? And I ended up not following through on that in most of my parlays, and bit me in the butt, unfortunately. But Rutgers, like, offensively, you just don't know what you're getting. If they can't get the run game going, you just can't trust their quarterback to make plays. You had an unfortunate drop on what should have been a touchdown to tie the game up. And it sucked. You had this cat, I can't remember his name. I think I know it was something black, but had massive, like, 40-yard catch. And then he followed that up on not necessarily the next play, but maybe the play after that. Drops the 40-yard tutty. It's sad. But Nebraska, man, defense is legit. Defense is legit for Nebraska. We could just go ahead and jump to my teams that just missed my top 25. Starting with Nebraska, man, looking good. They're gonna be going into a bye. They're 5-1. Their one loss is, I believe that loss was that Indiana? No, I don't think it was Indy. I know it was a tight one. Might have been Illinois. Might have been Syracuse. I got all these teams bundled up in my head. The schedule's kind of crazy for Nebraska, unfortunately, after this. Was it, let's see. It was Illinois. It was that OT game. But yeah, the schedule's kind of nuts for Nebraska after this, as you got Indiana, you got Ohio State. I don't know why I keep thinking Nebraska's in the Big 12. They're in the Big 10. But Indiana, Ohio State, and then you close the year with USC, Wisconsin, and Iowa. I did skip over UCLA. UCLA just not a good football team this year, unfortunately. But things get tougher the next few weeks for Nebraska. Colorado is in the Big 12. Can confirm that. They had a bye this week. They'll be taking on Kansas State. Big head-to-head showdown that this week for the Buff. And, I mean, you got two Heisman contenders in Shedeur and Travis Hunter. They're playing good football. You still worry about the offensive line, yeah, sure. But the defense is playing good football. Shedeur is playing great football. Travis Hunter is playing great football. And there might be some signs, there might be some life of a run game there for Colorado. Oklahoma, they got a lot going on. They get Texas this week. If they could pull the upset in the Red River rivalry, then yeah, they probably jump up in my top 25. But I have a hard time believing next week's going to look very much like this week did for the top 25. But they're down. I mean, they've gone to their backup quarterback. They have multiple wide receivers out. They have multiple offensive linemen out. It's a rough spot for Oklahoma, but they're sitting at 4-1. They're coming off a bye. Let's see how they do this week against Texas. They're still going to be a scrappy team. And then, of course, we got to have the military academy schools, man. Army and Navy. They are both 5-0, combined 10-0. This is like the first time since like the 1940s or something. And they did it in absolute, they just dog walked their opponents. Army, dog walking Tulsa. Army was the best bet on the board at -9.5. They destroy Tulsa 49-7. They get a UAB after this, who's coming off a bad loss against Tulane. And then Navy, they get things done against Air Force 34-7. They're going to be getting a bye this week. So both are 5-0. And don't look now. Are they your front runners for the AAC? They very well might be. But let's go ahead, get to the top 25, starting with Illinois. They're coming off a bye. They get a squishy Purdue team that's not that good. Don't look now. Illinois, I think, going to be 5-1 heading deep, I should say, deeper into their conference play with their one loss against a Penn State team that's probably, spoiler alert, going to be in the top 10. But they will get a few tougher matchups in the next few weeks. Michigan, Oregon. They'll get also, let's see, Rutgers. So those three games, they could very well all be losses. If they actually snag one of those games, if they sneak a win in one of those 3 games, ending the year 9-3, you should be really happy if you're an Illinois fan. You hear me, Nintendo Mike? Yeah, you do. Pittsburgh, they remain undefeated, beating North Carolina 34-24 in a bit of a shootout early on. They were able to pull away near the end of that game. This is the first time a quarterback has started 5-0 for Pittsburgh since Dan Marino. Legacy. Let's talk about it. They get California this upcoming week. A California team that's coming off a devastating loss. More on that a little bit later. Iowa State. They slowly but surely they got things done against Baylor. I figured this was going to be a slow grind. I'm kind of surprised they put up as many points as they did, as they beat Baylor 43-21. They take on a pretty tough West Virginia team this upcoming week that's coming off a big win against Oklahoma State. Though Oklahoma State, they just don't seem any good this year, unfortunately. Boise, they are now up in the top 25 at 22. Remember, I had 5 teams drop. That means I'm going to have 5 teams rise. This is the 4th of those 5 teams. They destroy poor Utah State. 62-30? Golly, man. Ashton Genty, he continues his record pace to beat Barry Sanders' rushing touchdown record. He's got to be one of your leaders for the Heisman. He will be when we get to the Heisman segment. They do they get a bye this upcoming week? No, they get Hawaii, so they basically get a bye. And then Michigan, this is the only team in my top 25 with 2 losses. And it's so hard just to take Michigan out of the top 25 completely. And I just couldn't really do it, as, I mean, I had them relatively high. They were around 12, 13 in my top 25. Michigan, they'll get a bye this upcoming week to figure things out at the quarterback position. Ultimately, that's what it came down to, man. This team just couldn't move the ball offensively, and we kind of figured that's what Michigan's going to be this year. And I know a lot of arguments are going to be like, well, Washington should be in the top 25 instead of Michigan. Well, head-to-head is just one aspect of how you rank these teams. A lot of it has to do with my preseason projections. A lot of it has to do with, well, the quality of their wins. And that USC win does hold a little bit of weight. And, I mean, Washington, that's another team. They're at like 4-2 as well that are surging. They may not have made my just missed it, but they're like in the top tier of my teams that are up and coming. Washington gets Fresno State. That should be a win there. Washington. No, that's Washington State. Who does Washington have? Iowa. Ooh, good luck. Godspeed. Good luck. Godspeed to Washington. But Michigan, obviously, if they keep losing, I'm going to keep dropping them. That's how this thing works. But it felt like they were too far in. They were too far up into my top 25 to actually drop them. And still, that defense is scary as hell. Let's keep rolling to the top 20 as I got Mizzou. And the big argument here is going to be, why do you have Mizzou so close to Texas A&M? Texas A&M smacked them, and they did. They did 41 to 10, 41 to 10, 41 to 7, 41 to 10. That's right, because they I think they ended up covering the over, or the over and under in terms of the point total. So again, head to head is just one aspect. Missouri still has the easiest schedule of really any of the SEC teams. Texas A&M, they do not, unfortunately. And I still buy into Mizzou potentially being a 2 at this point, the way based on how they played, a 3-loss team, which will put them in my top 25. I could only drop them so much. And unfortunately, coming off the bye, and yeah, now that Vandy win looks a little bit better, but the Boston College one's not looking so hot after they go down to Virginia. And it's like, man, yeah, you came in coming off a bye, and then you crapped the bed as an offense. Why don't you get the ball to Luther Burden enough? Like, I get it. Early in this game for Mizzou, a lot of things didn't break their way, because this was our watch-along game up until halftime, where, I mean, they had a picked-up flag that resulted in just ending the drive completely. They had a Luther Burden touchdown called back because of a holding call, and after that, the wind was out of their sails. They were just floating. They were adrift in the middle of this sea known as College Station, and got railroaded. Railroaded. The defense can't stop anybody. They did replace their DC after this year. He went on to he's over at LSU currently. So, like, I get it. There's a lot of problems with Missouri, but considering their schedule, there's only so much you could drop them. Texas A&M, they were on the outside looking in when it came to my top 25 entering the week. There was only so much I could move them up. So they end up right next to one another. And then SMU, don't look now. Mustangs, they're legit, man. They're legit. Let's take a look at the remainder of the schedule, because I really do think they're probably going to be favorites from here on out, as they take, honestly, the toughest matchup probably ends up being that Duke game. Don't sleep on Pittsburgh. Don't sleep on Boston College. Don't sleep on Virginia or California. But it's a pretty easy schedule from here on out in the ACC. They get Stanford in 2 weeks' time. They get Duke, Pittsburgh, which is a home game. Pittsburgh's going to be a home game for SMU. They get a home game versus Boston College. Virginia could be a sketchy one, and then California. So it's an easy schedule for SMU. They could very well be competing for the ACC championship game. And it's a big reason that how easy their schedule was is a big reason why I had them so high in my preseason rankings. And to be fair, they're only I think I had them with 2 losses this season, being Florida State and Louisville, and they get through both those games. Okay, man. Watch out. SMU's legit. Kansas State had a bye. They get a big game this week against Colorado. That's going to help shape the Big 12. Is the Big 12 far from decided? I thought it was going to be decided in weeks 4 and 5. Not so fast, my friend, as Lee Corso would put it. The Big 12 is still wide freaking open. Indiana, they end up being big risers here. They do take on, they get a bye this upcoming week, but they end up beating Northwestern 41-24. They cover, which is the best thing. Great teams cover. Good teams win. Great teams cover. But when it comes to Indiana and their schedule, they still have to take on Nebraska, Washington, Michigan, and Ohio State. So tough remainder of a schedule for the Hoosiers. So only so much I could really push them up my board. And then at 15, I got BYU. They also had a bye this week, I believe. It was a good week if you were undefeated and not playing in week 5. Spoiler, it was a good week if you were undefeated and had a bye this week, because this ended up being chaotic, and we'll talk about it when we get to the top 10. But BYU will take on Arizona next week. This is an Arizona team. You don't know what type of Arizona team you're going to be getting on the week-to-week basis. It's going to be a very winnable game for BYU. They're very much in the driver's seat when it comes to the Big 12 championship game. Notre Dame, they had a bye. They take on Stanford. Really, I would say their toughest matchup left is against USC. That's going to be at the Coliseum. But I believe they take on, do they take on both Army and Navy? They still got Georgia Tech. They have Army and Navy. So maybe the schedule from here on out isn't so promising for Notre Dame, but we'll find out, man. I feel like as a Notre Dame, since that loss to Northern Illinois, they've really found themselves. And then LSU, they have a bye. They take on Ole Miss this week. Ole Miss, let's just say Ole Miss was pissed about that Kentucky loss. They took it on South Carolina, but that's a big game, man. That's a big game for LSU. If they could win that, because the SEC kind of wide open at this point. It's kind of wide open. The college football playoff is kind of wide open. This might be the biggest year where there's just so much discrepancy. And we thought last year was it. This year feels very much like it, with the expansion of the college football playoff being so just insane. On top of that, just a lot of parity, a lot of variety, just a lot of things, a lot of unexpectedness thus far this early into the college football season. And then Liberty had a bye. They get Florida International. This was my group of 5 team that I picked to make the college football playoff. They have one of the easiest schedules. They had their game canceled last week because of the hurricane against Appalachian State. That's not going to be rescheduled. So, and I thought that was probably one of their tougher games. They should win out. They are in the driver's seat when it comes to a group of 5 team making the college football playoff. That's why I had them so high in my preseason rankings. It's why they're going to remain high until they take that first L. Clemson. Don't look now. Is Clemson sneakily the front runner for the ACC title? Like, I don't know. How much do you buy into freaking Miami? We'll talk about Miami when we get there, but how much do you buy into them? Clemson, I buy into quite a bit. Was it perfect this week? No, but they still won by 16. They beat Florida State 29-13. They take on Wake Forest. I'm not worried about that. This is a team that could put up a lot of points. Literally, it's like they had the Georgia game. That was rough. Since then, they've been smoking teams. Clemson's legit, man. Clemson's legit. That's a good team with a lot of talent, and they're starting to figure some things out. Now, let's move to the top 25. At 10, I got Utah. It's hard to not still believe, it's hard just not to buy into Utah still. Utah, I still think, is the front runner for the Big 12. Now having that conference loss to Arizona does complicate things. They'll be taking on Arizona State this upcoming week. They had a bye. I feel like once Cam Rising's healthy, their only loss came without Cam Rising. I think this is probably the best team in the Big 12 if Cam Rising's healthy. That's just facts. We'll see. They're taking on a very, very scrappy Arizona State team this upcoming week, but we'll see, man. We'll see. Ole Miss, they're here at number 9. Big win against South Carolina, 27-3. That was our other watch-along game. As, man, just right from the get-go, South Carolina unable to move the football. Even without Princely Umamielen, like, this team was able to win the trenches, at least on the defensive side of the football. Was it pretty on offense? No. Was it pretty for Jackson Dart? No. They lost Trey Harris early in the game. But defensively, this team's kind of legit. They're like, we're not going to let what happened in Kentucky, in Lexington, dictate our season. We're here to stay. We're here to play. They take on LSU this week. And then Tennessee, golly, man, everybody was on the Tennessee bandwagon. I remember when I just got them into my top 10, people were like, "Oh, Tennessee's easily the best team in the nation," and then suddenly, like the last couple of weeks, the team can't play offense. I mean, that's what kind of the game came down to. This offense was unable to hit explosive plays. And outside of like a big run, it felt like that Heupel wouldn't put the ball into Nico's hands. And to be fair, when they did on that last play, you're out there trying to run the football instead of like make that pass to the end zone. You need a touchdown to win. And I don't know, maybe your young quarterback, maybe young Nico cracks under the pressure. He's a first-year starter. Let's give a little benefit of the doubt. But they'll be taking on Florida this week. But crushing loss against an Arkansas team, 4-2. Hey, they've saved Sam Pittman's job. They end up losing. Tennessee ends up losing 19-14 here. Great game by the Hogs, man. Great game by the Hogs. They did a hell of a good job. Georgia had Auburn. Might as well have been a bye week. Sorry, Kirito. But you know it's true. Auburn's kind of in disarray. They beat Auburn 31-13. They essentially get another bye week as they're taking on a Mississippi State team this week that is in reconstruction. So Georgia coming off the tough loss last week against Alabama. But a lot of things broke Georgia's way this week. Let's just say a lot of things broke Georgia's way. And then, of course, the upset of the day. Freaking Alabama. Oh, my goodness. Golly gee. Upset of the day. I've been saying it since the Wisconsin game. This defense struggles to stop the run, and they did in this game. But it wasn't just that. They suddenly struggled to stop the pass. Vandy was able to move the football. Vandy had the ball for like 40-some minutes. They controlled this game. And then Vandy, they celebrate. You know, they storm the field, take the field goal post, throw it in the lake, river, whatever. That's nuts. But they're offensively, Alabama was cooking. They were able to score points in a hurry, but they could never control the flow of the game because, well, Vandy wouldn't let them. Vandy was very successful running the football. Pavio was very successful passing the football, like Eli Stowers. I know some people were like, who is this tight end? Man, that might be a legit draft prospect right there. He was on my watch list entering the season, never got around to him. Might make some time for him this week. I'm just going to say that. Alabama loses 40-35. Unbelievable. I still believe in the offense. Jalen Milroe still playing great football, but defensively, this isn't your Nick Saban defense. And it very much wasn't your Nick Saban defense last year. But now, not just your inability to stop the run, but now you're looking not so great in the passing game either after 2 weeks. So not great. And then the top 25. Miami is at 5, and I debated actually putting them at 8. I don't know if I buy into this Miami team. I don't. Like, these are the cardiac canes at this point, because anytime I got to watch Miami, I'm having a heart attack. That whole game. They were down 35-10 to California. And, hey, give them their roses. The offense was able to come back into this game and make it a ball game. And listen, like California, you got outscored, 29-3? You deserve to lose the game after that. I get it. Shenanigans at the end of the game. You had the target and call that never was. Should have been an automatic first down. You had ineligible man downfield. You had a offensive lineman downfield on the touchdown. I get it. Things at the end of that game broke for the Canes. But Cal let them back in it. Cal could not control the clock. They could not control the flow. They could not run the football. Miami, Cam Rising. No, Cam Ward. Too many Cams. Too many freaking Cams. Cam Ward. This is the one thing Miami has been missing since, 2003. A quarterback that could bring them back into games. Quarterback that's like never say die. This is the best quarterback they've had since, dare I say, Ken Dorsey. Now Ken Dorsey is an OC in the NFL. It's been a long time coming. It's been a long freaking time coming. And the Hurricanes are here. I just don't know how legit that defense is. They were able to crack things down in the second half. They get a bye. Good. Think about what you've done. Because the next slate of games aren't easy by any means for Miami. They'll be going to Louisville, taking on Florida State, taking on a Duke team that just got their first loss of the season. I mean, I never thought Duke was legit, but hey, that's a 5-1 team. Don't sleep on Duke. Georgia Tech's going to be a tough game, and that's at Georgia Tech. I don't have to talk about last year at Georgia Tech. I don't want to talk about last year at Georgia Tech. And then they still end the year with Syracuse. So, by no means is this, it still has a chance to be a rocky path for Miami. It still does. Penn State got things done handedly against UCLA. They didn't have to do much. They win 27-11. They take on USC. It might be their biggest match thus far this season. Probably is their biggest match since Illinois. That Illinois game was actually kind of good, but Penn State, I feel like they're getting hot at the right time. That defense is coming alive. Whether it's Sutton Dennis or whether it's Abdul Carter. And then Oregon, they beat up on Michigan State 31-10. Dylan Gabriel didn't have to be good this game because, Jordan James was like, I got it. I'll put the team on the back. And he did, man. He did. They end up winning, destroying Michigan State. But now with a game that is going to shape the top 3, they're going to be taking on Ohio State. It is in Eugene. Biggest game of the year for Oregon. This weekend, we have a chance to have some more parity at the number 1 spot. As we've seen the number 1 team shift the last 2 weeks. We can see it again this week. We can see it again. Texas, they had a bye. They get the Red River rivalry. By no means is that a for sure or far gone conclusion. But I do think Texas probably beats up on Oklahoma. They should. But they're sitting here at number 2. Ohio State, they demolished. They handily take down Iowa 35-7. This offense feels like it's for real. This defense feels like it's for real. Let's see them get it done in Eugene at Oregon. That's the matchup this week. We're going to be doing a watch along of that game this weekend. In Ohio State. Now, this is their first time number 1 for me. This is their first time I've had them at number 1 this season. Can they hold on to it for more than just a week? We shall see. We shall see. But I got to give a quick shout out to the draft guide. Listen, if you love the NFL draft like I love the NFL draft, I know you do. That's why you're watching this channel. Then you're going to want to get my draft guide. It is a Google spreadsheet that has over 300 evals, but it also has players that I plan or at least hopefully can get to during this college football season. It's got probably cleanly over 500 prospects listed with over 300 of them having evals. It's got full analytics. It has last year's analytics. It'll have this year's analytics. It'll have my notes from the Senior Bowl, Shrine Bowl, Hula Bowl. It'll have the Pro Day, Combine numbers. It can have everything. It has everything you want if you're a fan of the NFL draft. If you want to know every player that your team drafts, it's a great purchase. You could go ahead and get it at PayPal or at Venmo. That's how you say that word. Just go at Broshmo, or you could go to the Cash App, $ realbroshmo, $30, one-time purchase, and then it's yours here and now. You'll get it throughout the remainder of the college football season, as well as through the All-Star circuit, the offseason draft process. It updates as I update it, as I make changes, as I do evals. You will get those in real time. You'll get my big board changes, my ranking changes in real time. If you own it right now, you've already seen I've been making changes to my rankings. There's been a lot of movement. But it's a great way to support the channel. Heisman contenders. Let's go ahead and get into it. Jalen Milroe dropping to 5 after not a lackluster week on his part. He's still playing great football. It's just the defense kind of sucked this week for Alabama, but he's still playing great. He's still worthy of the Heisman discussion. So he drops a little bit. He's here at 5 now for me because, well, we had some changes, but I think he is still firmly a favorite for the Heisman. And then at number 4, I got Shedeur Sanders. He doesn't move from last week. They had a bye. Makes no sense to really move him. So we're going to keep him here. He might be the best pure pocket passer in college football right now. He's playing great football. Got him right here at 4. At number 3, I got Cam Ward. He has put this Hurricanes team on his back. I know it's not perfect. He's throwing picks. The pick 6 this week, really ugly. Pick 6 against Virginia Tech, really ugly. But he is the reason that this Hurricane team, that we're even talking about them as a top 5 team in the nation. Because he can put up points in a crazy way. Thus far through this season, he's got 3 rushing tutties. He's got 20 passing touchdowns. I think he leads college football. If he doesn't lead, he's either in the top 3 of passing yards. Cam Ward, he's legit. At number 2 is my personal favorite to win the Heisman, Ashton Jeanty. Big week against Utah State. He only had 13 carries, but he got 3 touchdowns. This man's averaging a first down or a touchdown on each carry. That's just utterly dangerous. He's on pace to break Barry Sanders' rushing touchdown record. He currently has 16 on the year through all of 5 games. Yeah, man. I love me some Ashton Jeanty. He is my running back 1. He was my running back 1 coming into the year. Yeah, not much is changing. But number 1, it's got to be Travis Hunter. We haven't seen a guy play both sides of the football like this in forever, maybe even ever. To play at such an elite level, not just as a receiver, but also as a corner, coming up with big plays. He's got 2 interceptions on the year, 6 receiving touchdowns. JJ Pegues is the only guy playing to his level when it comes to two-way players. By the way, shout out to JJ. He had 2 touchdowns this week on top of playing along the defensive line. But not to the level of Travis Hunter. He is him currently. But, of course, before we get to my stock report, I got to give a shout-out to Underdog Fantasy. If you use the promo code Broshmo when you sign up at Underdog, they will match your first deposit up to $250. It's the best place to play weekly best ball, or my favorite, higher or lower on player props. They give you free gimme picks every day when it comes to the NFL. They have promos every day. I think it's either Thursday or Friday. They got their dogs, just day for the dogs, where, hey, they got great deals on underdogs for college football. Listen, if you got college football, you're a man after my own heart. So get in on the action at Underdog Fantasy. Use promo code Broshmo when you sign up, and they will match that first deposit up to $250. But as always, bet responsibly, bet within your means. But after a crazy week of college football, we got some risers, we got some fallers. Welcome to the Stock Report. Let's talk about who did well and who did not so well this week in college football when it pertains to the 2025 NFL Draft. And to start my stock report, well, it's going to be Drew Aller. None other than Drew Aller himself. This cat had a solid game against UCLA, throwing for a touchdown. He had the quarterback sneak for another touchdown, but he's playing really good football this year. He's playing within the offense. He's still, I mean, you look at him on the throw-to-throw basis. Is he accurate? He's accurate enough. And it's not to say his accuracy is like terrible. It's not. But like the ball placement certainly can be better. But in terms of, this is a dude that's built different at 6'5", 243. He's got some running ability at that size. He's got a big arm at this size. And not enough people are talking about him as a potential quarterback one in this class, in my opinion. He is a top 50 prospect for me thus far through 6 weeks of the college football season. And I mean, with Aller, I think the anticipation's gotten so much better this year. He's worked so well within that offense. Mind you, they brought over Kansas's offensive coordinator here, and he's done wonders for the Penn State offense. And we're starting to see the big plays when it comes to Drew Aller. We're starting to see the big plays, and I'm loving it. I'm loving it. Listen, we're in this draft class when it comes to quarterback position. It's kind of okay, there's a lot of guys that have traits that are worth developing, but no one guy probably should start from the get-go. And if we're going to talk about guys that are like probably have to sit for a year, you're going to draft them because of their traits, Drew Aller has to be near the top of that list with guys like Jalen Milroe and Cam Ward. He really deserves to be near the top of that list. So stock up. Big game this week for him against USC. Let's keep it rolling with Landon Jackson, edge out of Arkansas, coming in at a rare 6'7", 281. Rare size for an edge defender, but he's finally turning up the heat. He's starting to hit home on pass rush. Like, he had a great week against Tennessee. 7 pressures, 3 defensive stops, had a sack, had a win rate of 19.4%. You typically, if we're talking about edge prospects that could go on day 1, on day 2, you want that pass rush win rate to be around 18% or higher. Like, hey, if you're going to go in the first, you probably want it in that 20%. He's hovering right around it right now currently. And he's been hot the last couple of weeks. He has been hot, but I still think he's very much a raw prospect, a unpolished prospect, probably the best way to put it. I think the physicality's gotten a little bit better for him this year, but it's still got a ways to go. He is tall at 6'7", so he's not going to win the leverage game every down. That's something you're just going to have to live with. He is a bit of a tweener at that size. He does have some injury red flags, whether it's the ACL, the ankle, but he brings such good versatility at that size. He's got a pretty good toolbox of pass rush moves. And the athleticism at that size makes you believe, oh yeah, we could keep this guy out there on the edge. He's been tearing it up for Arkansas the past couple of weeks. If he just continues to go stronger, then yeah, man, maybe we talk about him as someone that could sneak into the first round. I'm still a little ways from that, but I recognize, hey, I don't mind him in the top 50. He kind of gives me some Keon White vibes, if you will. Next, I want to talk about, let me get the pronunciation out. Donovan Iziraku. I'll get the pronunciation down by the end of the draft process. Out of Boston College, coming in at 6'2", 241. He is currently listed at 247, but Still, he's a little undersized, lacks a little bit of that girth. That's kind of the big talking point with him. Play strength, like he's not going to win with power, and he's very much a finesse pass rusher. And you could see there are times where he just gets stymied in the passing game, where he just gets stuck in engagement. But he is someone that has been relentless. He had 9 pressures this past week, had 6 defensive stops, a win rate of 27.6%, firmly in that day 2 discussion for me. Most definitely got around to his tape this past week, and I don't think he's like the most explosive guy. Like, he's got an all right first step, but at his size, like, I want something a little bit better. But where he wins is with his suddenness, his smoothness, as he just does a really good job of setting up his initial pass rush and then using his hands to orchestrate secondary moves, whether it's like a club rip, dip inside. But like he just does a really good job of that, and he loves the inside move. Like, he loves countering to the inside. And he's got the smoothness to do that. He's got some plays where it just looks like he's doing like a basketball Euro step. And I think a lot of that maybe stems just from the track background. This guy did triple jump. Have you seen those guys fly? Have you seen those? Have you seen the triple jump when it comes to track? Yeah, you got to have light feet. You got to have subtle feet. He's got that. And on top of that, he plays with a big motor, and he actually plays really well against the run, despite that size. It's just he's not going to be someone you really expect to set the edge because he lacks that power profile. But man, Donovan's a dude that's like, this edge class has got some players on day 2, man. It's got some players on day 2. I talked about Mike Green out of Marshall weeks ago. But like, if you're looking for some guys that's got some tools, man, this class got some guys with tools, and with like there's a large variety of different body types as well. Like, we're talking like Jalen Walker, Mike Green, Josiah Stewart. You got Landon Jackson, Ashton Gelate. You got freaking Mikael Williams, LJ Overton. You got a ton of guys. So you got a ton of variety in terms of what you could get body type and from a skill set standpoint. So had to talk about him this week. But then we're going to the Ole Miss game. Walter freaking Nolan. He's starting to emerge in a defensive interior class that's like, yeah, we like a lot of the prospects in this class, but is anyone really, really catching your eye as a pass rusher? Walter Nolan is. Big game against South Carolina. 7 pressures, 4 defensive stops, 2 sacks, a win rate of 25%. Utterly insane. 6'4", up to 305. He was initially listed at 290. Up to that 305 makes a world of difference. And you should be probably talking about him maybe at the back end of the first round at this juncture. Like, Walter Nolan was a highly, highly sought-out recruit. 5-star recruit. At A&M, man, they worked him a lot off the edge. There was Shamar Turner. And now he's working primarily on the inside. And he's wreaking havoc, man. He's got a powerful, powerful frame. He's well built. He's got really good overall athleticism. The technique still got a ways to come along. But now, hey, he's starting to produce when it comes to numbers. The contact balance could be a little bit better. It's been better this year. Walter Nolan legitimately, I think, is going to be a first-round prospect. No more, like, he entered the year as a top 50 prospect for me. I think now he's at maybe in the back end of that first-round discussions where we would talk about guys like maybe Talik Williams, Deion Walker, you got Derek Harmon out of Oregon. Those guys that we talk about as potential, like, first-rounders. I think Walter Nolan has now stepped up and put his foot in front of all those other guys. Great week from Nolan, man. Really, really great week. And he's only I think he's a true junior too. So we're talking about a very young guy. He'd be 21 at the beginning of his rookie season. Next, Wyatt Millum, offensive tackle out of West Virginia. Listen, this is a tackle class that is lacking. It just is. You got Kelvin Banks, you got Will Campbell, and then it's like, is there another first-round tackle? There's Arianti Urshi, who, okay, I'm gonna come. He hasn't had like a super impressive year. Like you love the length, you love the tools when it comes to Urshi, but Michigan game was a bit up and down. He's probably more mid to back end of the first round, and mid might be pushing it. Some people have talked about Cameron Williams out of Texas. He's his first year as a true starter. I'm gonna go back and watch the Texas offensive line this week because there's a lot of guys I want to watch from that Texas offensive line. But Milliam, like Milliam, I don't think he's not a first rounder. He could be a top 100 guy, but I think there's just some stuff missing from his game. Like he's got solid movement skills, like good mover, definitely built for the outside zone blocking scheme of today's NFL. But he's just someone that kind of lacks elite traits. He's someone that dips his head constantly on contact. It's just a bad habit, and I'd like to see him stop. But he has been so consistent for West Virginia the last few years. And this past game against Oklahoma State, a relatively good defense there. Allowed no pressures, no sacks on 26 pass rushing snaps or pass defending snaps. I think in terms of like technique, he's well put together. It's just nothing like has me like going cuckoo bonkers about him, right? It just doesn't. And I mean, again, this is a tackle class that's begging. It's begging someone to step up. And maybe more so you're going to be looking day 2. Some of these guys, I could see him going like top 50 just because we saw edge talent there at the back end of the second, early third in this past class where it was like, or this past draft class where it was like, well, there's guys that we want, but the class really falls off at a point. So let's just go ahead and overdraft these guys. And that's fine. I'm not saying Millam's going to be someone that ends up getting overdrafted, which he could. Probably overdrafted compared to where I have him on my board, but he's more well put together than a lot of those guys that I thought went in like the late second, early third portion of last year's draft, like Caden Wallace and DJ Glaze. I think Millam's way more put together than a couple of those guys. So good week from Millam, and keep producing. And I just think he's more of this, like, he might not be a high end, like he's going to be our tackle for the next 10 years and he's just going to be dominating. He's going to be like an all pro. I don't think that's him. I just don't think that's him. I think he's like okay, we can insert him and he's going to be maybe like the third, worst case scenario, fourth best player on our offensive line, and we're okay with that. We can live with that. I think that's more so what he projects, at least to me, in the NFL. And then I want to stick with offensive tackle Jack Nelson, and honestly, I could put his teammate up here as well in Riley Mahlman. The Wisconsin tackles, I think, are pretty legit, man. They're going to be talked about in that like third round area, I think. With Nelson, I think being a little more impressive in my opinion, just because he's got this ideal frame at 6'7", 307. He's very flexible. He fires out of his stance, quick feet, functional strength, not like overwhelming power, but you're not going to see him get like tossed off his, you're just not going to see him get tossed. And you're generally not going to see him get movement as a run blocker, but in an outside zone blocking scheme, I think he can really pay dividends for you. He's got very active hands during pass rushes. But there are times where he is a bit off balance, which, hey, that's going to send off like red flags for me just because, hey, Evan Neal, you were a guy that played off balance and I fell in love with you and now I'm eating crow. So I'm gonna be a little less high on those guys who can't just stay off the ground. Nelson, for him, it just feels like there's a little bit of too much fire. I guess you could say too much fire, too much gusto, and he ends up just getting a little out of control. With 6'7", yeah, you're always gonna worry about the leverage, but Jack Nelson's a legit prospect, a legit guy that's kind of stepping up in this class. He had allowed no pressures, no sacks this past week against Purdue. I know it's Purdue, but Purdue's got an okay defensive line. It was nonetheless a pretty good showing. He's played really well this whole year. He has started games since 2021. He's played left tackle. He's played right guard. He's played both sides of the offensive line. So like, I'm down to get in on the Jack Nelson train as a top 100 prospect potentially. So I had to give love to some of the tackles in this class because this tackle class does feel a little bit light. Next, we're talking Boise State. We're talking Utah State. And it ain't Ashton Jeanty. I don't need to talk about Ashton Jeanty. I'll talk about him when we talk about our middle of the season rankings. We know Ashton Jeanty is him. We know he is him. I want to talk about Jalen Royals because this was kind of his breakout game this season after coming off a great year last year. And I figure a lot of people are unfamiliar with Royals. If you didn't check out my wide receiver rankings before the season, you're probably unfamiliar with Royals. He made my top 15 wide receivers in that video. But Royals coming in at 6 foot, 195. It's a fine size for a wide receiver, but he had a big game against Boise State. Granted, they were playing from behind a lot of the game, so there was a lot of passing, but he is the offense there for Utah State. Had 9 receptions for 211 yards, 2 touchdowns, 5 forced missed tackles. You'll love to see it, and you love that this guy's story. Like, he was a 0-star recruit coming out of high school. Went to Georgia Military College, played 11 games there, and then he flew out to Utah State for a tryout. And after he tried out with Utah State, they immediately offered him a scholarship. Didn't really play much his first year at Utah State. Last year was the breakout year where he was a first team All Mountain West. And this year, it was a bit more slow going because Utah State's offenses kind of struggled. But here we are, massive breakout game for the season. And when it comes to Royals, he just does a lot of things good. Like, the speed is really good with Royals. It's a lot better than you expect. Like, I watch him and I'm just like, oh, wow. Oh, wow, man. Like, you look smooth. You don't necessarily look like you're running fast. But everyone else looks like they've been slowed down. And that's kind of freaky, man. He's pretty explosive in that regard. He's been recorded to run a 4.30 in the 40. So, and the explosiveness is there. He had a 130-inch broad jump for Utah at that tryout, which was a big reason why they were like, yeah, get this guy on the squad. But he's also really good at the contested catch. Might not be the tallest guy. I don't even think he's going to be 6 foot. I think he might be more in that like 5'10", 5'11" area. We'll see. But he plays the ball like so stinking well, man. He goes up, he high points the football. He had a 73.9% contested catch rate last year. So you love to see it, man. And he's very well put together as a route runner. Like, he was legitimately getting separation. He gets separation all year. He just needs a good quarterback to get him the football. So if you're unfamiliar with Royals, get familiar with him. You're going to hear his name a lot during the offseason draft process. Again, if you haven't heard of him now, or if this is your first time hearing about him, get in on it, man. Royals is hella good. Speaking of hella good, Cameron Scatterbo, running back out of Arizona State. I actually talked about him a little bit last year, and we're talking firmly probably late day 3 player if drafted at all. He's coming in at 5'10", 225 pounds. He's not the fastest guy, but he's just a football player. He is a good football player. He was initially played for Sacramento State prior to his time here at Arizona State. Last year was his first year at Arizona State, and it was kind of a coming out party for him because it was like, man, this guy, he's hella good, man, hella good, and he's strong, he's physical, he's sneaky good as a pass catcher. He even could throw the football. That's fun. That's real fun. And he's just, again, the definition of, oh, no, this guy, just good football player. He's going to do it on special teams. He doesn't mind doing the gritty pass protection work. Had a big game against Kansas, though Kansas not playing well this year. 26 carries for 183 yards, a tutty. He had 19 receiving yards as well. Might lack ideal athletic traits and can be a bit impatient as a runner, as he'll get the football. He just kind of, he's no nonsense. He wants to get going north and south really quickly. But like, kind of feels, let's just call it what it is. Kind of feels like the Carson Steele of this running back class in particular. So I wanted to give him a little bit of shine, especially coming off a big week against Kansas. And then I'm going to stick at the running back position. Talk about Jordan James, running back out of Oregon, 5'10", 205 pounds. Still firmly got him as an early day 3 pick. But good game against Michigan State, 24 carries for 167 yards. And a touchdown, had a 4-yard reception in there as well. But like when it comes to Jordan James, man, like he plays low, he plays nimble, he's got excellent vision. But he kind of falls into this, oh, okay, for being a little undersized, he isn't like this end-all, be-all athlete. He's just not. So he's very much in the Bucky Irvin mold, which, hey, that's kind of paying dividends for the Buccaneers right now. As Bucky Irvin, he's playing, he's got split volume with Rachaad White at this juncture for the Buccaneers. So you if you're undersized but not the best athlete, you can make it in the NFL. Again, look at freaking Kylan Williams, another guy. If your vision's that good, you can make it. And James, I think, can. He's like, you definitely need to talk about this cat. And like, his running style is violent, man. It is. He may be undersized, but he doesn't mind eating contact. And his broken tackle, like his forced missed tackle rate, is pretty darn good. It was good last year. It's good this year. Like Jordan James, like, I know the running back class is stacked, so these guys are going to get pushed down the board. But don't sleep on him. I don't think he's going to test out well, and I just kind of want to throw that out there. It might be like similar to what we saw from Bucky Irvin, but I think this is someone that plays with better vision and better patience than Bucky Irvin did. And he's got a little more violence to him when it comes to him being a ball carrier. Like, but with Bucky Irvin, man, he was someone that was like just hard to take off his feet because he ran so low to the ground. With James, he's seeking you out and he's trying to put you in the ground. I love that. I love that. He does have limited reps in the passing game, which that's not going to help his cause. But that's kind of what made like Kyren Williams, where it was like, oh, he's so good in the passing game, though. So hopefully that's maybe something we're going to see later on in the year. I don't know. I don't think the offense just doesn't work that way. But I had to talk about Jordan James. I had to talk about running backs, man. This is a good running back class. And then last but not least, let's go back to the quarterback position. Jackson Dart. He is a divisive prospect. You either love him or you hate him. That's kind of where I think people are at with him. And I kind of fall on the in between. I think he is maybe better. He is Matt Corral with better size and probably a better arm. Which I mean, I think he's firmly in the top 100 discussion, could sneak into the top 75. but he's not going to be in that quarterback one discussion. And listen, like if you're not new to the channel, you know I loved Jackson Dart going into the year last year. But I'm going to call a spade, man. Like he feels like a good quarterback, not great quarterback. Someone that is very much just because of the offense he's entrenched in that Lane Kiffin, RPO heavy offense, first read, gone. Is there a check down close to the line of scrimmage? Okay, maybe I'm going to run it. That's a lot of the offense, man. And you see him taking a lot of shots downfield as his adjusted completion percentage is kind of low this year because he takes a lot of shots downfield. And that's kind of what the offense dictates. That's what the offense asks him to do. I do think his ball placement is a little bit better than that, but you are going to worry about his accuracy on the throw bases. You are going to have to like work him from the ground up after being in this offense for so long. That can he function in anything more than an RPO heavy scheme? I think that's a fair question to have. I really do when it comes to Jackson Dart. And guys, I love Jackson Dart. I think he's got a plus arm. I think he's got a really quick release. I think he's got actually a good feel for pressure. Like when he has to get out of dodge, he'll get out of dodge. He's a bit slippery as an athlete. He really is. I mean, I might hate that the dude doesn't like to slide. There's too much of that dog in him, too much of that competitor in him, but he needs to do a better job of protecting his body. He really does. But in this class where it's like, man, quarterback one's such a toss-up, I don't think he's in that discussion, but he's firmly in that day 2 discussion. Like, this is better Matt Corral. I think this is way better Matt Corral. And I think that probably warrants like a 3rd round pick. But yeah, it wasn't like the cleanest week this week for Jackson Dart. He lost Trey Harris early in that game. Early downs, he was definitely taking a lot of shots that just didn't fall his way. But ended up going 14 for 27 for 284 yards. He had 52 rushing yards. Didn't have a touchdown in this game. No touchdown for him. But yeah, Jackson Dart, I'm a fan. I don't want to pretend like I'm not, because I am. Truly am. But let me know who are some of your favorite prospects in this class. Who broke your heart or caused your heart to grow 10 times this past week? Who impressed you? Who didn't? Let me know in the comment section below. That's it for the video. And of course, until next time, you be easy, my friends. Later. Now, before I go, I do want to take... Nope, that's not where I'm going. That's where I'm going. I do want to take a look at the chat. What up, Mackenzie? Hopefully you're having a great day. We got Brandon. Are they just saying Oregon is the number 3 team so they can say Ohio State versus Oregon is number 2 versus number 3? I guess. I don't know. To me, I mean, Oregon, it should be the number 3 team. Like, they came into this season, Brandon, I think as... like between Georgia, between Ohio State, like Oregon was that next team that was like, yeah, this is one of the most talented rosters when it comes to college football. It's just I thought they had a tough schedule. I had them having some tough breaks when it came to losses in my projections, but they've done a good job just kind of winning out, you know? Kind of done a really, really good job just kind of winning out. And now the biggest game of the season here at Ohio State, I honestly think it should at least be a 1 versus 3 matchup. They probably have Texas at 1, the AP, which is fine, but maybe they just didn't want to replace their number 1 team again if things go awry in Eugene. But Breakdancer, what do you think of Colorado making the playoff and beating a team? I don't know if they can beat a team in the college football playoff. I think they can make the college football playoff if they can win the Big 12. Because I honestly think when it comes to the ACC and when it comes to the Big 12, part of me just thinks only the champions of those schools will make it. And maybe there's an outside shot on one other of those schools actually making it. I don't know. We're gonna have to see, man. But Colorado, man, they're in the running. They're absolutely in the running for the Big 12. Absolutely. The Big 12 is wide open. I thought it was going to be decided in week 4 and 5. That's not the case. Too much chaos has transpired. Too much. Telio, you agree with my Matt Corral, Jackson Dart comparisons? A lot of it has to do with the offense, though. A lot of it has to do with the offense. So, putting that out there. I would want to see Ohio State versus Colorado playoff game. I think they could win. They can stop the run. Yeah, but I don't think I think the offensive line for Colorado gets eaten alive in that game, unfortunately. Drake. Kendrick Folk? Keldrick Folk? I haven't checked him out. If he's a true sophomore, I won't check him out until next year. A couple of Virginia DBs looked good for me this weekend. Yeah, I'm hoping to have time because I know I want to dip into one of their safeties. I'm hoping to have time to dip into that Virginia defense, but we'll see. I gotta get through the Texas offensive line this week. But anywho, that's gonna be it for me, guys. I'm gonna get some videos ready for the week for y'all. I'm actually gonna go right now. I'm gonna start working on my mock draft. That'll be out later today. But if you haven't already, hit that thumbs up on your way out. It warms my heart if you can do that, and I do appreciate it. But as always, until next time, until tomorrow, we'll be back talking the NFL. Until then, you be easy, my friends. Later.